All right, let us take a look at some skeletal muscle, and we're at the muscle chapter. And let's see here. We have, oh, this one has interrelated discs. Maybe we'll jump to this one with our very dark purple stain, but yours is going to have probably more of a pink and purple stain than quite so dark as this. And let's see, because we have 3 sections on here. Cardiac looks like it might be in the middle. So let's go ahead and zoom in. And our heart slides are interesting because our heart is kind of a spiral of muscle tissue. And so you might see on the same slide, very close in proximity, sections of your cells that are longitudinal that we can see here. You might have cross section and also like an oblique section. And so again, we want to try to find this longitudinal view that we see here. And right away, you can see that the cells are much smaller than what we would see in skeletal muscle cells, right? And muscle tissue. Right away, we also see there's some more spaces in between the cells, which makes this a little bit different than skeletal muscle cells. We also have lots of connective tissue that is supporting. We have lots of blood vessels and nerve fibers running here in the tissue as well. And the comparison between skeletal and, let's say, cardiac muscle cells is, again, the sizing. So these cardiac are much smaller, but also cardiac muscle cells only have 1 nuclei per cell, whereas skeletal have multiple. We also can see these intercalated discs popping out kind of right away, which are these dark bands that are running perpendicular to the direction of the muscle cell or muscle fiber that we see here. So again, these little dark bands, or sometimes they're white in the staining process, but yours and these actually are dark, okay? So your slides is what I mean. So we have these dark bands that are intercalated discs. Our intercalated discs are the junctions between one cell and the next, and they serve as both adhesion junctions, helping to hold the cells together, but also as gap junctions, which allow for chemical flow or chemical communication from one cell to the next, which you kind of need to, I guess, think about how uniform and patterned heart contraction is, and how do we keep that kind of uniform contraction pattern is allowed through these gap junctions, along with obviously your nervous system. So at a higher mag, as we keep clicking in here, you can start to see that, yes, these indeed do have striations. And so there's this little bit of a patterning that you can see in the cytoplasmic area of the cell. And we're at the max, capacity of magnification. And when you compare this back to skeletal muscle cells, we can see it, lower down in our magnification. So you might have to really zoom in and magnify. Again, manipulate your diaphragm lever, the light source, and really find focus. And sometimes you might have to find focus out and in and out and in order to make these striations kind of pop out a little bit more. If you run into some fibroblasts or blood vessels, that's completely normal. My suspicion is if we scanned around this entire area, it would be pretty uniform, and it is. We can continue to see intercalated discs as we're traveling. Some areas are better for striations, other areas maybe not so much, right? You can see more striations over here, a little bit over here. And so it's not, I think as perfect in view for striations as we see with skeletal, but you can definitely see that here as well. Not that we need to do this, but you might have some tissue that is, in a cross-sectional view of the heart. And I guess for the purpose of showing you, let's say, what to avoid, what to avoid. So if you have some tissue that you can clearly see is more longitudinal, this kind of looks a little bit more oblique over here. You might have more of this kind of island looking, like all these little kind of patchy areas that might run into longitudinal. You can still get there that way. If I jump over here, this is definitely more of a cross-sectional view. You can kind of see this kind of fascicle appearance again with like arteries and veins and things like that. This is another way that you could potentially see vessels as well. But you do not need to look at kind of a cross-sectional view I'm going to kind of assume that maybe, let's see if there's any more oblique sections. Not so much. So it's kind of more along this area over here. Really don't worry about that. Okay. So if you're wandering around and you're like, nothing looks like what it looks like in the book, that's because you have lots of different section types. So again, try to find this kind of elongated appearance and go ahead and zoom into that area to see if you can start seeing nuclei and the striations that should be popping out there. Again, you can already start to see, as my computer is taking a minute to focus in here, you can see the connective tissue, nice big nuclei, and let's see, the striations do pop out, and then you can actually see a little bit of that light band that is there, that those are going to be the intercalated discs. So they're not particularly stained on purpose for this slide, but you still can sometimes see them in where they basically would be present. Okay, so some of the slides you might be able to see the blood cells, the red blood cells on this one. They really do pop up kind of this glowy pink. Remember, they're not nucleated either, so that does kind of help identify exactly what you're seeing. Okay, I think that's it. You can obviously, use some of the keys over here too if you want to see cross section versus longitudinal section. The one thing that I might have left out was this kind of branchy appearance, but again, more space in between the cells is kind of what that means, with a little bit more of a jagged edge. Oh, this is great too. Look at these little intercalated discs that are kind of popping out here. So that's, again, something that you can use this slide for. Oh, look at that. There's a couple of them right there and another one over here. So a couple slides here for at least you guys to use. All right, that's it for our cardiac muscle.